Car horns honking, the bass from overly cherry pop music in the distance, hundreds of conversations flowing from all around as one wanders through a sea of people crossing a busy intersection. Neon signs and lights and hiragana characters atop towering skyscrapers dominate the sky. The only sanctuary from this urban chaos is to find a koi pond next to a castle hidden in the middle of the city. To most, this is how life in Japan is pictured. Japan has many sites and parks hidden that contrast Tokyo, shaped by the small farming community that many do not acknowledge. I've been in northern Japan for 3 years, and I'm going to give you first-hand account of this unique culture. Forests can be found all around Japan's second most northern region, Tohoku, simply by driving in any given direction for only a short amount of time. Lakes and rivers are never hard to find. They offer a quiet spot to watch the sun rise, see a salmon snag a fly from the water's surface, and hear nothing more than crickets chirping and the grass rustling in the wind. The beaches of the Pacific Ocean are always amazing to see. Jetties stretch forth from the sand way out to the deep dark blue parts of the ocean, where fishermen will often try to catch rock cod between the crevices of the rocks. A mere 4-hour journey from Japan's east coast on the Pacific to the west coast on the Sea of Japan will take you to a unique sandy area where you will often see stands selling squid jerky, which is actually really popular over here. Japan's Ministry of Environment reports that about 5.4 million hectares, which is about 21,000 square miles of land, has been set aside by the government as a national park to preserve its natural beauty. These areas offer spots for hunting, fishing, and camping. Gun control is not quite as strict over here as you might think. Gravel roads no wider than 5 feet will intersect Japan's small streets and will often turn into mud and go through fields of rice, beets, and other various local produce. Cattle, goats, and horses are not rare to see along these roads. It is this agricultural industry built by the farmers that shapes the culture of rural Japan. These farms will supply produce to the larger supermarkets in the bigger cities, but they also host farmers markets similar to the ones you would see in the United States. One of the major differences that you can find here is that produce is sold individually instead of by weight. It's part of Japan's idea of taking only what you need. It's the same reason you go to a vending machine and buy a large can of soda or a small can of soda for the exact same price. None of this produce or farming equipment can be transported by a Nissan Skyline or one of those stereotypical drift or Tokyo drift cars that you might see in the movies. What the Japanese farmers use around here is called the K-truck. Larger trucks such as the F-150 are too big for the roads, and even Toyota Tacomas are really rare to find around here. The K-trucks are really small, about the size of a golf cart. They have a 2 or 3 cylinder engine and only hold a couple of gallons of gas. You'd be lucky if you got something as luxurious as a radio, but you almost always have 4-wheel drive, making them great for going between the rice fields and the tiny little roads. Built from these little K-trucks were the Japanese SUVs, such as the Daihatsu Terios, which I actually currently own, which is really great for having 4 people going through areas of forest, going over the sand or in mud pits. This actually built up a bit of a Japanese country culture, what we in America might call a redneck culture. We often, on a Friday night, see a group of people out having a bonfire and off-roading over these muddy hills. Any of these vehicles can be used to see the unique hidden sites of Japan. The biggest and most prominent one would be shrines. Although religion isn't heavily practiced in Japan nowadays, it's heavily embedded into the culture. According to factsandDetails.com, Shintoism and Buddhism dominate Japanese culture. 90% of the Japanese citizens are either Buddhist or Shinto. There are little small aspects of Christianity, Islam, and other religions around here, but they're not very prominent. These little shrines have been left over for centuries. They may be a little small abandoned building with nothing more than a torii gate, which is the typical Japanese arch you might see in pictures, and a set of steps. I've seen ones as ornate as 3 or 4 story buildings with samurai training rooms and dining halls attached to cemeteries and crematoriums. None of what I mentioned is part of the stereotypical scope of Japan that most people know about. Hope the information I've given you opened your eyes a little bit to what is out here. Japan is much more than a land of just street racing, neon lights, and anime. The parks, environment, farms, cars, and shrines are only a small part of the area. I've only scratched the surface of what's available. Even if you're not somewhere like Japan, take the time to explore areas different than the norm. You'd be surprised what you can see.